To do with
Miss
you
Hardwick,
boys. No.
you will be held in contempt of this court if you become
I don't
disruptive.
care. I haven't done anything to this court. I haven't done anything to
Okay.
him.
She'll be
And it
arrested for
doesn't make
10 days for contempt of court. You go now.
Every now and then, someone enters a courtroom and completely loses control, turning what should be a formal proceeding into a chaotic scene. One such instance involved a woman, let's call her Karen, who during a hearing became physically aggressive toward a judge, crossing a line that few would dare to breach. Karen was visibly upset as the hearing began, her frustration simmering just below the surface. It was clear that she wasn't pleased with how the proceedings were unfolding, and as the judge continued to speak, her agitation grew. Instead of remaining calm and articulating a reasoned argument, Karen allowed her anger to take over. What happened next was as shocking as it was sudden. Karen, her face flushed with anger, suddenly stood up and began to approach the bench. Her movements were aggressive and her intent clear. She wanted to confront the judge directly and make her feelings known in the most physical way possible. As she advanced, the courtroom froze. No one quite believed what they were seeing. But reality quickly set in, and before Karen could reach the judge, court officers sprang into action. They swiftly restrained her, preventing what could have been a dangerous escalation. The entire courtroom was on edge as the officers held Karen back. Her outburst had disrupted the proceedings, turning the once orderly setting into a scene of chaos. But despite the commotion, the judge remained remarkably composed. She didn't raise her voice or show any sign of fear. Instead, she calmly instructed the officers to charge Karen with contempt of court, making it clear that the behavior would not go unpunished. What stands out in this case is the judge's ability to maintain control and restore order in the face of such a blatant challenge to her authority. It would have been easy for her to react with anger or to allow the situation to spiral further out of control. But by staying calm and decisive, the judge reinforced the sanctity of the courtroom, ensuring that it remained a place where the law, not raw emotion, prevailed. Karen's actions that day serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of letting emotions take over in a legal setting. The courtroom is not a place for physical confrontations or emotional outbursts. It's a place where respect and self-control are paramount.
This is at the Family Dollar store.
Yes, ma'am.
He said he went into the store, picked up multiple items, and then walked out of the store not paying, came back with a pliers tool in his hand, screaming and yelling in the store. So if he's using force, isn't this a strong arm robbery?
In the bustling city of Miami, Florida, a routine bond hearing took an unexpected turn when 30-year-old Travis Green appeared before Judge Mindy Glazer. Green, who had a long rap sheet dating back to 2011, was facing charges of petty theft and battery after a rather bizarre incident at a local Family Dollar store. While bond hearings usually wrap up quickly, Green's behavior and the nature of his charges turned this hearing into something far more memorable. It all started when Green was arrested for entering the Family Dollar store, taking several items without paying, and then returning shortly afterward with a pair of pliers, yelling and causing a commotion. The situation seemed straightforward enough. Green had stolen items and returned in an aggressive manner, which escalated things further. Judge Glazer, however, questioned whether the situation should be classified as something more serious, like strong-armed robbery, given Green's behavior with the pliers.
I'm not giving free trial. It's a bond. Let it post a bond. It's $2,000. 500 count one, 1,500 count two. Have a good day.
You nasty.
No, you nasty. Hold on.
Miss Courtney, let it go. Not worth doing a contempt. Just let it go.
That's when Renee Gordon, Green's public defender, stepped in to make her case. Gordon argued that Green hadn't actually made physical contact with anyone. Instead, he'd merely knocked a product out of someone's hand, which, in her opinion, didn't constitute battery. As for the pliers, there was no evidence to suggest that Green used them to threaten or harm anyone. He simply had them in his possession while making a scene. In fact, Green himself chimed in, insisting that he never touched the guy, but only knocked the item out of the person's hand. Judge Glazer listened carefully, but despite the defense's arguments, she decided there was enough probable cause to uphold the charge of petty theft and battery. She set Green's bond at $2,000, $500 for the petty theft charge and $1,500 for the battery. The public defender attempted to argue for pretrial release, claiming that Green's prior offenses were somewhat outdated, but the judge stood firm. She wasn't willing to offer pretrial services given the nature of Green's behavior and his criminal record. What really made this case stand out, however, wasn't just the legal discussion. It was Travis Green's reaction to the judge's decision. Frustrated and clearly unhappy with the outcome, Green muttered an expletive under his breath as he was being escorted out of the courtroom. It was a brief but pointed insult aimed directly at Judge Glazer, and it didn't go unnoticed. But Green didn't stop there. As he was being let out of the courtroom, he decided to take his frustration to the next level by smashing a glass in the courthouse. This reckless act earned him an additional charge of criminal mischief and another $1,000 bond, adding to his already growing list of legal troubles. What began as a relatively straightforward hearing had now turned into a scene of disorder and chaos, all because Green let his temper get the best of him. In the end, Travis Green was released after posting all of his bonds, but his cases are still pending. His day in court didn't just result in the charges he originally faced, it led to more trouble due to his inability to control his emotions. The situation serves as a prime example of how acting impulsively in a courtroom can quickly make things much worse. The consequences of his outburst are a reminder that maintaining control, especially in legal settings, is critical. Courtrooms are spaces where behavior matters just as much as facts, and losing your cool can not only hurt your case, but also lead to additional charges, as Green learned the hard way.
I don't see a reason why you shouldn't be, because there's not a reason this should be here.
Okay, sir, I find you in contempt of court for using that type of language with the court you just used. And before I pass sentence on you, I'm going to ask you if you have anything to say before I pass sentence.
I apologize, I was out of line. I'm just upset because this is not what I was charged with yesterday.
Okay, sir.
I was charged with a battery.
I accept your apology, and I will sentence you to 60 days in the Broward County Jail. Thank you.
Can I take the back in?
All right, sir, hold it. Come on back. Come on back, sir. Sir, I'm inclined to hold you in contempt of court again.
Courtrooms are places of order and respect where your words can either help or hurt you. This particular case shows how a man facing a routine hearing managed to double his sentence, not because of the charges against him, but because he simply couldn't hold his tongue. It all started as a bond hearing, but what happened next became a lesson in courtroom decorum. The man facing charges of battery appeared before the judge. He seemed agitated from the start, clearly unhappy with how things were going. After hearing the details of the case, the judge decided to deny bond, telling the man that he would be held in jail until further notice. That should have been the end of it. However, as the defendant was being escorted out, he muttered a disrespectful comment under his breath directed at the judge. Unfortunately for him, the judge heard it loud and clear. Immediately, the judge called him back into the courtroom and asked him what he'd just said. At this point, the man, without thinking, admitted to insulting the judge. The judge, maintaining composure, asked the defendant to explain why he shouldn't be held in contempt of court for his outburst. The defendant, clearly not realizing the seriousness of the situation, responded that he couldn't think of a reason. This was the moment everything took a turn. The judge calmly sentenced the man to 60 days in jail for contempt of court, making it clear that his behavior was unacceptable. But the situation didn't end there. As the man was once again being let out of the courtroom, he questioned the judge's authority, asking if the judge could legally impose such a sentence. That was mistake number 2. The judge called him back again. At this point, the man had clearly not learned his lesson. The judge, now less patient, informed him that not only did he have the authority, but because of his continued disrespect, he was adding another 60 days to the sentence. The man's total time in jail now stood at 120 days, all because he couldn't control his temper and kept questioning the court's authority. What makes this case so remarkable is how quickly things spiraled out of control. What started as a bond hearing for battery charges turned into a lengthy jail sentence, not for the original crime, but for behavior in the courtroom. The judge remained calm and in control throughout the entire process, but his message was clear. There's no room for disrespect in this court, and there are real consequences for those who cross that line. Losing your temper or speaking out of turn can quickly make an already difficult situation far worse. In this case, the man allowed his frustration to cloud his judgment, and it cost him an extra 120 days in jail. Had he simply accepted the judge's initial ruling, he would have walked out with only the original charges to deal with.
My motion for sanctions against Mr. Nicoletti for this vexatious and frivolous PPO.
I'm sorry, on his what?
I have a motion for sanctions against...
I know that. And the purpose of the sanctions are based on what?
It was a frivolous and vexatious PPO based on nonsense. I am not stalking Mr. Nicoletti.
I haven't signed a PPO.
In every courtroom, there's an understanding that the stakes are high, emotions run deep, and lives can be changed with the bang of a gavel. But while some people manage to keep their emotions in check and present their cases calmly and factually, others, like the Karen in this story, believe that turning up the drama will sway the judge in their favor. However, as this case shows, exaggerated theatrics in the courtroom can backfire, especially when the judge is experienced enough to see right through them. This Karen walked into the courtroom with a plan to overwhelm the proceedings with emotion, hoping that her dramatic flair would garner sympathy and ultimately a favorable outcome. From the moment she took the stand, it was clear that she was more interested in putting on a performance than presenting a coherent case. Her testimony was peppered with exaggerated claims, over-the-top descriptions of her suffering, and at one point, even tears that seemed to flow on command. The key moment in this case came when Karen, sensing that she wasn't getting the reaction she wanted, turned up the drama to absurd levels. She began sobbing uncontrollably, claiming that the defendant's actions had ruined her life in ways that were not only improbable but clearly exaggerated. Her cries echoed through the courtroom, but instead of drawing the sympathy she had hoped for, they were met with skeptical glances and murmurs from those in attendance. The judge, watching the display with a discerning eye, remained unmoved. What Karen didn't realize was that this judge had seen it all before. Years of experience had taught him to look beyond the theatrics and focus on the facts. He dealt with countless cases where emotions ran high, and he knew how to separate genuine distress from an attempt to manipulate the court. As Karen continued her over-the-top performance, the judge patiently allowed her to finish, his expression revealing nothing. When she finally stopped, clearly expecting a wave of sympathy, the judge instead asked her a pointed question. "Where is the evidence to support your claims?" The room fell silent. Karen, taken aback by the judge's lack of reaction to her emotional display, stammered as she tried to redirect the conversation back to her feelings and personal suffering. But the judge was having none of it. He calmly reiterated that the court needed facts, not feelings, to make a decision. Drama might work in a movie, but in a courtroom, it's the evidence that matters. The judge's experience and professionalism were crucial in handling the situation. He recognized Karen's attempts to manipulate the proceedings and refused to let emotion overshadow the truth. By maintaining focus on the facts, he ensured that the case was decided based on evidence, not on exaggerated claims or tears. Karen's theatrics, far from helping her case, ended up hurting it. By focusing so heavily on her performance, she neglected to present the concrete evidence that the court needed. The judge's skepticism, honed by years of experience, led him to dismiss the more outlandish of her claims, and in the end, she was left with little to support her arguments. The takeaway from this case is clear. In court, facts and evidence trump drama and exaggeration.
Ms. Gray, you are suing the defendant because you got hit by a football while you were at the beach, and you feel that the defendant was being negligent?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Explain what happened.
Okay. So I went to the beach, and I want to be suing him for $750 because he hit me in the face with a football. He broke my nose, he broke my cartilage, and they had to re-break my nose in order for it to be fixed. And I have my medical report right here.
Wow. Okay. Can you give Renard your evidence?
Okay.
So you broke your nose.
Yes. So the insurance covered most of it, but like I said, there's $750 left over that I think that since he's the one who hit me in the face, I feel that he should pay. So about 6 months ago, I went to the beach. It was Sunday, and I go every single Sunday. I go to the beach, and he's never been there before. I go to the same spot every time. He's never been there. I always go to by the dock, by 13.
And this is a public beach, is that correct?
Yes, it is a public beach. There are children and everything. So I bring my grill over to the fire pit, and there's more than one person at the pit. There's more than one grill.
Here's another case where Karen wasn't ready to take any responsibility. From the moment the hearing began, it was clear that Karen wasn't there to own up to anything. Her demeanor was defensive, and she seemed more interested in finding fault with others than in addressing the issue at hand. As the proceedings unfolded, Karen's behavior became increasingly disruptive. She argued that the judge was biased against her, accusing him of siding with the opposing lawyer. She claimed that the court clerk had mishandled her case files and that this was why she was in trouble in the first place. According to Karen, everyone in the room was part of a conspiracy to bring her down.
Yeah, I threw a bullet to him and had to get it into the touchdown, and it slipped through his hands. Actually hit his hand. He almost caught it, Your Honor.
So then why aren't you suing Dustin?
he should have been more careful with where he was throwing the ball, how hard he was throwing the ball, with how they were acting all day. They were not being careful of the people around them.
You shouldn't have been there. That was not an area where you should have been. You were not welcome there. And an accident is an accident. There's no liability. We cannot show any type of negligence or recklessness or any type of other behavior to signal that it was an intentional act.
The key moment in this case came when Karen, feeling cornered, launched into a tirade, insisting that she was being unfairly targeted. She accused the judge of not listening to her side of the story, the opposing lawyer of twisting the facts, and the court clerk of deliberately sabotaging her case. The atmosphere in the courtroom grew tense as Karen's accusations became more outlandish. Her refusal to take any responsibility for her actions led to a heated exchange that threatened to derail the entire hearing. But despite the noise and confusion Karen was creating, the judge remained calm and focused. He let Karen speak her mind, but when she was finished, he responded with firmness and clarity. The judge systematically addressed each of Karen's accusations, cutting through the noise to focus on the facts of the case. He pointed out that her claims of bias were unfounded, and that the evidence clearly showed that her troubles were the result of her own actions, not a conspiracy against her. The judge's firmness was crucial in maintaining order in the courtroom. By refusing to be swayed by Karen's baseless accusations, he kept the proceedings on track and ensured that the focus remained where it belonged, on the facts. He made it clear that while everyone in the courtroom had a role to play, the ultimate responsibility for her situation lay with Karen herself. The judge's ability to cut through the noise and keep the hearing focused on the truth was a reminder of the importance of accountability in the legal system.
Ma'am, I'm just trying to help you. Ma'am, he's trying to help you. And please don't use profanity or try and disrupt my courtroom, because I don't want to be forced to hold you in contempt of court. All right, Mr. Snyder's trying to help you. And I'm ordering that you stay away from Cynthia Cuba. Do not have any contact with her, and you must stay away from her home and place of business. As to the other case...
Who is this Cynthia Cuba? Tell me!
I
Who the
you allegedly tried to hit with the pliers. The other case, F-51-426, the bond gun is $5,000. It's $5,000, and count 3 is $1,000. Have a nice day, ma'am. We'll try and get you into the hospital.
Courtrooms are places where emotions often run high, but they're also spaces where control and composure are crucial. The stakes are real. Decisions made in these rooms can change lives. Yet some people, like the Karen in this case, find it nearly impossible to keep their emotions in check, leading to moments that can derail the entire proceeding. This particular case was marked by a dramatic emotional outburst that not only disrupted the hearing, but also put Karen at risk of facing even more serious consequences. The hearing started out like any other, with both sides presenting their arguments. Karen, however, was visibly agitated from the start. Her frustration simmered as the opposing lawyer laid out a case that was clearly not in her favor. The tension in the room grew thicker by the minute, and it became apparent that Karen was struggling to keep her emotions under control. As the hearing progressed, her irritation turned to anger, and that anger quickly boiled over. The key moment in this case came when Karen could no longer hold back her emotions. What started as a few sharp comments quickly escalated into a full-blown outburst. She began shouting at the opposing lawyer, accusing him of lying and twisting the facts. Her voice, trembling with emotion, filled the courtroom as she started crying, her frustration pouring out in a torrent of tears and accusations. The judge, trying to maintain order, asked her to calm down, but Karen was too far gone. She continued to yell, her words becoming more incoherent and her demeanor increasingly distraught. It was at this point that the judge, recognizing that the situation was spiraling out of control, called for a recess. The courtroom, which had been buzzing with tension, fell silent as the judge sternly warned Karen about the possibility of being held in contempt of court. He made it clear that while he understood emotions can run high, the courtroom was a place of order and respect. Any further disruptions, he said, would not be tolerated. The judge's handling of the situation was a masterclass in maintaining control while showing compassion. While Karen's outburst wasn't immediately handled, it didn't get swept under the rug. By calling for a recess, the judge gave Karen a chance to collect herself, to step back and hopefully return with a calmer demeanor. At the same time, the warning about contempt charges was a firm reminder that there are consequences for disrupting the legal process, no matter how justified someone might feel in their emotions. When the hearing resumed, Karen was noticeably more subdued. The The judge, having re-established order, allowed the proceedings to continue with a renewed focus on the facts of the case. Emotional outbursts, no matter how understandable, can seriously undermine a person's case in court. While it's natural to feel strong emotions during a legal proceeding, especially when the outcome can have a significant impact on your life, letting those emotions take over can lead to more severe consequences. In Karen's case, her outburst put her at risk of contempt charges, which could have added to her legal troubles. More importantly, it distracted from the facts of the case, making it harder for her to effectively advocate for herself. In all, Karen's experiences serve as a reminder that while the courtroom is a place where emotions are present, it is ultimately a place where order, respect, and calm deliberation must prevail. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the latest courtroom moments.